All right, welcome to another episode of Man to Man. Today I have a very special guest with me. He loves defense appreciator. He is the man himself, the trapezoid of excellence himself. That is Mr. Ryan Hammer. Ryan, I appreciate you hopping on, brother, to talk some NBA draft with me.
Of course, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy we finally made it happen.
Yeah, I know we couldn't make it work at the Final Four, but we've been in connection or in contact since. And so this has been a long time coming. So, like I said, I'm excited to chop it up with you. Obviously, we chop it up on Twitter, but now on YouTube to talk some NBA draft. I guess you can say Duke has six guys. I'm gonna count Cedric Coward as a Duke alum. I mean, he was one of the best to ever wear the uniform. So we have six Duke guys to talk about on top of some other guys as well.
Fair enough. I'll call 5.5. How about that?
That's fine. I'll take 5.5. It looks even better on Shire's resume. But the
Yeah.
man himself first we'll talk about is Cooper Flagg. Projected. These are all ringer projections, by the way. Cooper Flagg projected, obviously, the Mavs. Is it as clear cut as we all make it out to be that he is the best player in the draft?
Yeah, it's without a doubt. When you look at how complete he is, how young he is, obviously he was reclassed, supposed to be coming into college this year instead of what he did last year and going to the draft. Like 18.5 on draft night. He's an unbelievable defender. What I love about him is the competitive aspect to him. And I think it's going to it's going to help his development path a lot. Where especially when you look at the things he needs to tweak, his handle in tight situations and shot creation, maybe a little bit of more consistency offensively, even though we've seen that more throughout the season. I think his competitive nature that we saw like back at like Team USA camp last year, I remember in the summer. I think those are the little things that will help him hopefully reach his ceiling and stuff like that. But man, he's awesome. I love Dylan Harper. I love a bunch of other guys in the draft, but no one touches Cooper.
Yeah, I mean, look, Cooper, the one thing that I don't think gets talked about enough with him is his shot coming into Duke, it was to the side a lot. And then early in the year, it was to the side of his head. And his shooting percentage showed it. It reflected like he didn't shoot well from three, especially early on in those big games for Duke. And then in probably around mid-December, he started fixing it. And I want to say the second half of the year, he shot like 40% from three. And that right there is a green flag for me as a number one prospect of like, not only is this a weakness or, people view it as a weakness, but how quick you can correct it and then adapt your game. And so him also running the point sometimes for Duke just shows what he can do at the next level.
Yeah, no, 100%. I've comped him to Kawhi Leonard the entire process so far, and when you look at the shooting, like you said, I don't want to call them struggles because they're not struggles at all. When you look at his strengths and weaknesses, his capabilities and stuff, you don't think of Kawhi Leonard as a shooter, especially when he was coming out of college and when he was a young NBA player. He had the same kind of offensive struggles, and it took him a little bit, but everything else in his game, especially the length and versatility and defensive aspects of things, was what gave Kawhi the ceiling and let him be on the floor still while he got through those shooting progressions and stuff. But I see so much similarity in them and even in their development path. So I'm hoping he can follow a similar suit without the load management stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, Kawhi Leonard coming out of San Diego State, nobody really thought he'd be what he is now. And so I like that. I like that. Now, I want to talk about Kon Knueppel. Kon Knueppel is projected fifth, the Utah Jazz. We'll get to my Hornets in a minute at number 4. But Kon Knueppel at 5. What can you tell the people that just think he is this white kid that is just spot up shooter?
Yeah, I mean, if people think that's all he is, first of all, if that is all he is, that gives him a role in the NBA. Let me
Sure.
just put it at that first, and at his size. But I don't think people have really watched him and really watched him more than a game or two. And obviously, he's a great shooter, and that's his biggest strength. That's the first thing you're going to think of, and that's great. Like I said, that's going to give you a role in the NBA when you're 6'6", whatever, 6'7". But man, he just there's not an aspect of the game he's not a net positive, and he plays with a maturity it's so far beyond his years. You would think watching him that he's like 22, 23 and the vet on the Duke team and stuff like that, outside of him looking a little younger. But he's awesome. Like he can defend decently. He's got good size. He's become such a good passer and playmaker, especially with the fact that Cooper running the one at times at Duke, and then Kon's kind of running the one, and then Proctor, and they kind of just mix and match. And I think that has benefited all of them and their playmaking chops. But there's really not an aspect of the game he's not a net positive in. He has such a high floor, maybe the highest floor outside of Cooper.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. The thing about Knueppel that people one of the things they harp on is his athleticism or lack thereof that they see on film. But the thing about him is he plays so strong. Like he's 6'6", but he plays with such a strong base at all times that you can't knock him off balance. I mean, Drake Powell was arguably one of the better defenders he faced all year, and he got rave reviews during the combine. And he would take that physical contact all the time against Carolina. The 3 times they played, and it just seemed like he wasn't affected by it. And he always plays off 2 feet, which is something that sounds cliche, but it reigns true. And I think the one part of his game, that offensive game, that people don't realize he's so good at, that he showed flashes at Duke, is his mid range. I think the mid range. I love the mid range shot. Especially when you use it at the right time. If you shoot 10% of mid ranges, it's a great shot. I mean, look at the NBA playoffs right now. Jalen Brunson, when he gets to that mid range, that elbow jumper, it seems like it's butter. But I think Knueppel doesn't need to worry about going to the rim and try and poster somebody. Just get to your sweet spots, and he's really good at that as a prospect.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Having a mid range as a guard, I look at floaters a lot too. Floaters in mid range, having that kind of touch early on in your career before you get to the NBA or early in your NBA years, I think that projects very well going forward. It just shows your ability to find different spots and have layers to your game, and it shows your touch around the rim too.
Yeah, him going to Utah at number 5 in the Ringers mock draft is interesting. He would now be with Kyle Filipowski, who obviously was drafted by the Jazz last season. But now I want to talk about Khaman Maluach. He is projected 9th to the Raptors. Now, Maluach is the guy that he has what people would view as untapped potential. Like you would see some stuff at Duke. You're like, wow, this kid is top 5, maybe top 3 on certain games, like the Alabama game in the Elite 8. And then you see the Final 4 against Houston, where he obviously was the biggest guy on the court, but had 0 rebounds. But he can guard 1 through 5, or he can get on the perimeter and switch if needed.
Defensively, he's everything you want him to be. I mean, he is a damn monster. It's crazy. They've shown stuff of like his shooting upside and drills. I don't like Zach Edey was shooting threes, and I could shoot 3. Everybody could shoot threes in the drills and stuff like that. For the most part, I don't buy that into his upside, but you want him to be Rudy Gobert, basically. You want him to be hopefully a perennial DPOY guy would be unbelievable, but even contender, an all NBA defender would be awesome in a few years. And he has those chops for sure. Offensively, great rim runner, dunker spot guy, short roll a little bit. Like, he's just smart. I love how much of a positive, infectious energy he has every time. And I'll credit Duke social media for that. I'll credit the Duke social team, because they're always showing him in before and after games, even in during games, stuff like that. Man is always smiling. He's always picking everybody up. When you ask Cooper and Kon and all the other guys, and I'm sure stories will keep coming out throughout the years and through the draft season of like, what's your favorite part of this? It's always like, it's Maluach or man, they call him, like doing something stupid or silly in the locker room. Like, he's a great person to have and be around. He's coachable, on top of him being a good prospect. There are some like people point to the Houston game and say like, man, he didn't have any rebounds against Houston in one game in his last game of his career. Like, I don't know if it was the whole like political thing going on with that. I don't know if it's just that Houston plays so physical and it was the bright lights in the Final 4, or combination of everything, or just an off day. But it's one game played with a 30 whatever games in the year. Like, there's more than enough proof in the pudding.
Yeah, I understand, and I agree with you. It sucks for him because he was 7'2", and Houston was obviously the biggest guy, was like 6'9", but Houston's just, there's a different type of physicality that, again, he's only played like organized basketball for 5 years. So he's never seen a team like Houston. And like you said, there's a lot of stuff off the court that he had to deal with that we wouldn't know about. And I do like his upside because you saw it. Like I said, the Alabama game was awesome, where Duke just had Mark Sears, it seemed like in hell for 40 minutes because Maluach can get out there and contest shots and block shots. And I agree with you too about the shooting. I think when he committed to Duke, people saw what he was shooting when he was playing for South Sudan in the Olympics. Like, oh, this guy can step out and shoot. He was hitting like a pull-up mid-range. I'm like, this is not really a high percentage arsenal that he's shooting. If it comes along in his career, great. Because to your point about Zach Edey, I remember Derek Lively was making threes in the corner. People were like, why wasn't Shire letting him shoot threes?
No.
Like, no, you don't want that. So I like the comparison with Gobert about like instant impact on defense, potential, best case scenario, defense player of the year type of guy. But Khaman is a guy that he intrigues me because he's only get better with age. And so who would you say his comparison is?
I mean, I see a lot of Rudy Gobert in him. I say that with intent. I think that's a ceiling outcome, obviously. Like, Rudy Gobert is people will argue for Hall of Fame status, of course, because of the depoys he's won. But in terms of style and impact, right, especially right now, I think that's what you want to get, a guy who can be your go-to 5-man in the starting lineup all the time. You trust everything he is. He's smart offensively to a point where his weaknesses and unspaceability, we'll call it, isn't a weakness. And because he's such a good offensive rebounder, rim runner, and stuff like that, dunker spot, being in the right spot, and just an unbelievable defender. The defensive part is going to be what separates him, because there are good defenders at the 5 spot that are just rotational guys, but because he's so massive and he moves so well and he is so switchable, like it could be a next level, like elite type of defender.
Well, if he goes to the Raptors fans are going to watch this and be very excited with what you just said. And now I want to talk about the Duke legend himself, Cedric Coward, projected 15th. And let me just say, if he goes 15th to Oklahoma City, who could win the NBA Finals this year, that is just insane. Cedric Coward is obviously a guy that committed to Duke for about a month and then was the hottest name arguably on Twitter. Every time I'd open up Twitter, I'd see Cedric Coward, and I'd see him top 3 on a leaderboard and something at the NBA Combine. What can you tell people about Cedric Coward?
Yeah, I will say this about the Duke reference is that I think he would have ended up staying anyway. I don't know if Duke didn't recruit him and he didn't commit to Duke. I don't know if he would have the same perception in draft stock, at least socially. I think scouts, for the most part, do their work more than that, obviously, and just like social perception. But the perception would be completely different on him, and all the different mock drafts and stuff would not have him going 15 and 16 if he didn't commit to Duke. I do truly believe that. But the versatility he's got on him is awesome. He's built like Jalen Williams. I think he's a little stronger, but similar, where he's like 6'5", 6'6", but he's got like a 7-foot plus wingspan. It's freaky. He's not as good of a creator as Jalen Williams. He's just more of the physical type, but he's a great defender. He's a good shooter. He can score on all levels for the most part. He's athletic. He's a really good complementary player, I think, into the NBA. I don't know if he ends up going 15. Like, I think Jalen Williams ended up going like 13 or 14, actually. He skyrocketed up to the lottery in a very similar late rise in the draft process that we saw a few years ago, like we're seeing with Coward now. I like him. He's super smart and intelligent too. If you ever spoken to him or you've ever seen him speak, if you haven't, I would go watch. Like, I think my man League him did a really good interview with him recently and stuff like that. But going into the draft stuff, but he's super intelligent and coachable, and he's on a late growth process, we'll call it, right? Like D3, he's humble, he understands it. He started at D3, then he went to Eastern Washington, then Wazoo, and he was going to go to Duke, but now he's ended up in the draft. Like, he keeps proving it and getting better at every step of the way. So there's a lot to like. There's a lot of ways he impacts the game, a lot of versatility. So it's easy to see why NBA teams like him more than other guys that are maybe like more talented.
Yeah, I agree with you that if he didn't have the Duke name, if it was just a Washington State guy going to the draft, I think he's still late first projection, early second maybe. But the Duke name does carry, and I know he even said that is not the reason why he committed to Duke, because I think he had the intention to play at Duke. But yeah, he's a good kid. I agree. Like the interviews I've seen him talk about, he was invested in Duke during the time, and he seems like a good kid. And it's going to be Duke's done a good job to pivot away from Coward for this upcoming season as they landed Sarr overseas from Barcelona. But Coward, in college basketball, a key to success in college basketball is having older team or a guy that's older that's also one of your best players. And Cedric Coward would have filled that role great for Duke. Now Duke is going to be younger than anticipated. But Cedric Coward going to OKC, projection-wise, I'm still shocked because I said this on my show, Ryan, that he's coming off that shoulder injury that was season-ending. Sometimes that's a red flag in any type of draft. It's like, well, I know you look good right now, but how healthy is that shoulder? And so you think that could possibly hold him? Like, Ringer has him 15, but you can see him maybe slide to like the mid-20s because of the shoulder injury that, people may have a red flag on.
Yeah, I think maybe more the fact that it's a smaller sample size this year, and this was his best year by a landslide. The few games that he did play, they'll do their medical reports and research with him. Like, Cam Whitmore slid because of medical concerns when he was in the draft, and when people thought he was going to go top 5 or 6, he ended up going like 20 or whatever it was. I slot him right now like early 20s, to be honest, like without injury concern. I just think it's a smaller sample size will be the concern, if anything.
Okay. Well, now I want to talk about a guy that OKC is also projected to land in the second round, and that is Seion James. Again, the Ringer has him at 44. I love Seion James, and I'll hold that until after I get your thoughts on Seion. But
Sure.
where do you have Seion in your projections?
Yeah, I have him like mid-second right now. I think he's one of the guys that is going to benefit. It's really everyone in the late second and mid-second that are benefiting a lot from so many guys going back to college. A lot of those late first, early second round guys like that we will talk about and you've seen all over social media. He's benefiting a lot. He's older. He kind of reminds me, he doesn't play like Kon, but in terms of what he offers in the NBA, I think it's like a 4-year older version, less upside version of Kon Knueppel. So you get like a decent floor, a very low ceiling, but you can throw him into rotation, maybe a two-way guy or something like that. I think there's value to take him and see if you can fit him into some NBA minutes early on because he's obviously like physically built. He's strong. He's a great defender, but he'll just do a lot of the little things. He can shoot a little bit. He can play make and stuff like that. So I'm not like so super bought in. I'm like, he's got this crazy upside, like the people don't know about, but he's a solid player, and I think everyone has saw that this year at Duke, and that's all he is. So
Yeah, I think he was an elite role player at Duke, and I think his mentality as an intangibles will find him a role somewhere in the league. I think he'll find a roster spot and stay there. I mean, he should be a running back or a linebacker in the NFL, but his the way he plays the game or just the right reads he makes reminds me, I'm a little biased too, of Miami's Jordan Miller. Like it's just the way that it's the right decision. He's going to crash the glass. He's just a guy you can always count on night in, night out to be making the right decisions as Jordan was in Miami. And again, I'm biased with Miller, but Seion is a guy I think who I'll talk about later in this show as well, that I like him a lot. All these depend on fit, but I think regardless where he goes, he'll fit in just fine with the roster. But that leads me to the last guy we're going to talk about is Tyrese Proctor, 47th projected to Milwaukee. What can you tell me about your thoughts with Tyrese Proctor's game?
man, when he was coming to college, I was so high on him for that year of a one and done. Even last year, I'm like, he struggles a little bit, especially shooting the ball. But like I still like him. He's big. He has got, you see, he has like what the NBA wants. He's a big guard who can defend, and he's got playmaking chops. So he could be like one of those jumbo playmakers at the guard spot. I think what brings my stock on him down is that I don't see him being a full-time one guard in the NBA at all in the future. And that's okay. Like he doesn't have to be. There's only so many, whatever. There's really only like 20 of them that are like full-time one guards like that. And not even for every team sometimes. But that damages a little bit the shooting inconsistency and I guess more like lack of confidence a little bit because of the years it's kind of taken and the struggles he has had. I still like him, especially in this draft. Like I said, he's another one of those guys that's going to benefit, and I think he's worth an early second. And he could be good in the NBA. I think it's just his natural instincts, defensively, especially where he's developed a lot, playmaking chops, size, athleticism, and coachability. I think is what you buy into.
Yeah, Proctor. It shocked me that he was going to the league. Now I don't know why. Everybody has the reasons, but if he had 1 year of eligibility with the NIL, you're projected like 47. But again, people sometimes are just done with college no matter what, and so maybe that was just his thought process. But the one thing I love about Proctor is if you turn on his highlights, you're like, wow, this guy's unbelievable. Like he has really good highlights. Like
Sure.
he can break a defender down one-on-one and hit a tough step back and make a nice dime, and you're like, wow, this dude, he's good. And then there's times where on synergy, I wish I had it in front of me, but all 3 years at Duke on layups, he shot around 50% all 3 years. It's just a spot he never really improved at as rim finishing. And I thought an extra year in college, that would be like the bread and butter to really help his stock as being 6'4" point guard, 6'5" two guard, or combo guard, and not being able to finish consistently around the rim. I think it's because he's a 1 foot jumper. I really do. I think he's one of those guys that just loves to go off 1 foot. And I talk about Knueppel, 2 foot guy,
Yeah.
stronger and well balanced, and that is like the one downfall with Proctor. But if he can shoot like he did in certain times of this season, then yeah, he can find a spot. But then, unfortunately for him, last 2 years, Duke got bounced in the March Madness against Houston, obviously, and NC State, where Tyrese Proctor did not have a good game, his worst game of the year both times. And so that's just where he's very hot and cold.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. And like you said, where if you're not a good shooter outside, or you're not sure, and you can't finish inside, and you're a guard, there's not much you can offer right there. So that's a problem.
Yeah, and especially we like mid range, but teams don't want you to settle for mid range every time down the court.
Yeah, exactly. It's good to have in your artillery, but it's not good to rely on.